My name is Nate. I live in Salt Lake City, Utah. I'm 26, got my degree in digital media a couple years ago, and I work freelance now. Editing videos, doing motion graphics, that kind of stuff. Most of my days are chill. I walk to the coffee shop down the street, headphones on, laptop in my backpack, trying to convince myself that replying to client emails counts as productivity. The day it all went to hell started like that. Monday. Late August. Warm, but not hot. The air was clean. The mountains looked sharp against a cloudless sky, and the city buzzed just enough to feel alive, but not chaotic. I remember thinking how good it felt to finally have a routine. Around 10:40 a.m., I was walking out of the coffee break on 400 South. Americano in hand, podcast in my ears. People passed me on the sidewalk. Students, office workers, skateboarders. Normal stuff. Then I noticed this guy stumbling near the track station. Not like drunk stumbling. Like, off. He was barefoot, moving stiffly, like every joint hurt. I paused my podcast. People were watching him now. A woman asked if he was okay. He didn't respond, just sort of growled. And then he lunged at her, took her down hard. I heard her scream, and for a second, I didn't even move. It didn't register. Someone yelled, "Call 911." The guy didn't just tackle her. He bit her. On the neck, there was blood. Real blood. Bright red and pumping. She screamed again, high and ragged, and that snapped me out of it. I backed away fast, nearly dropping my coffee. A dude in a hoodie ran up and tried to pull the attacker off. Got bitten in the arm for his trouble. More people ran. Some froze. I turned and bolted. Full sprint. I made it 2 blocks before I heard more screams. Not one, but a whole chorus. Somewhere down State Street. I turned a corner and saw chaos. People fighting people. More of those stumbling types, attacking random pedestrians. One climbed on the hood of a car and slammed his fists on the windshield until it cracked. A kid screamed from inside. I yanked my phone out to call my roommate, Josh. No answer. I texted, "Shit happening downtown. Lock the doors. Call me." I started running home. I lived off 800 East. That's a long way on foot, and traffic was already snarled. Cars honking, tires screeching. I cut through Liberty Park. That's when I first saw the infected up close. This woman, mid-30s, wearing what looked like a gym outfit, ran straight at me from behind a tree. Her mouth was smeared with blood, her eyes wide and filmy, pupils huge. I ducked under her arms and shoved her as hard as I could. She hit the dirt and scrambled right back up. No hesitation, no pain. Like a machine. I sprinted the rest of the way through the park, heart hammering, lungs on fire. A guy in a Prius offered to let me in. He was trying to drive through the grass, but he was swarmed before I even made it halfway to him. 3 of them. Tore into him like dogs. I didn't look back. When I got to my street, it was already bad. Josh's car was gone. A mailbox was on fire. My neighbor, Mr. Landry, stood in his yard with a baseball bat, yelling at something behind his house. I ran inside, locked the door, and shoved the couch against it. The news was already running emergency broadcasts. Believed to be a rapidly spreading viral infection. Symptoms include extreme aggression, lack of pain response, and necrotic bite wounds. If you are bitten. I turned it off, looked out the window, saw a man dragging himself across the road, one leg mangled, intestines trailing. A woman knelt next to him, sobbing, until he reached up and clawed her throat open. I backed away. I spent the next 2 hours barricading windows, filling the bathtub with water, packing my go bag. I had camping gear, enough food for a couple days. Guns? Just an old baseball bat. My dad's. The city kept screaming outside. Sirens, helicopters, gunfire, fires. Josh finally texted, "Safe. At Lexi's. Can't get back. Stay put. Will come find you if I can." That night, the power went out. I lit candles and listened to the silence between screams. The infected didn't talk. They made this low, horrible snarling noise, like dogs choking on blood. I could hear them moving up and down the street. At some point, a group of survivors came down the block. Armed, flashlights, walkie-talkies. They moved tactically. I thought about calling out, but then I saw one of them pistol whip a man trying to join them. Left him bleeding on the pavement. Not everyone's a hero. A few days in, things changed. The city wasn't a city anymore. It was a graveyard with teeth. Most of the infected slowed down, starving, rotting. But they didn't stop. You had to crush the skull to kill them. Some figured that out fast. Others didn't make it. I joined up with a group about a week after the outbreak. We called ourselves the Bench Street Crew, mostly because we met near a bus bench and none of us wanted to call it a gang. There were 9 of us. Me, a nurse named Elena, 2 college kids, a prepper named Frank, and some others just trying to live. We fought every day. Fought zombies, fought looters, fought fear. Frank had guns. Elena had skills. I had speed and a good eye. I could spot an infected a block away. But people were the real problem. They stole. They lied. Some used the chaos to do worse things. One night, a group from another crew raided our stash, took half our food and nearly killed Elena. After that, we stopped playing nice, set traps, took shifts, made rules. I don't know what kind of world we're in now. The government's gone. The internet's gone. Most cities are just rumors. Some say there's a safe zone up north, past Ogden. Others say there's nothing left. But I'm still alive, and I won't go down easy.
Name's Ray. I'm 43. Spent most of my life in Central Florida. I worked as a mechanic at a small shop in Winter Haven. Divorced, 1 daughter who lives with her mom up in South Carolina. Life wasn't glamorous, but it made sense. Rent was barely manageable. Groceries went up, but I learned to stretch things. Old habits from my dad, who lived through worse times. Or so he claimed. But nothing prepared me for this. It started slow. The markets dipped. Nothing major. Talking heads on TV called it corrections. Then it got worse. The Fed hiked rates. Inflation spiked anyway. Unemployment skyrocketed. Then came the decision from the White House. President Locke announced a full debt freeze, effective immediately. No repayments, no collections, no evictions. Sounds good on paper, until the banks froze everything. Credit cards, business loans, pensions. Then the stock market halted. Permanently, they called it an emergency stabilization order. It was the trigger. Within 48 hours, grocery store shelves were stripped clean. Gas stations got mobbed. My shop shut down when the owner skipped town. I stood in the garage, staring at an unfinished F-150, my paycheck bouncing in my inbox. By the end of the week, the city was unrecognizable. Looting started small. A corner store hit at night. Then bigger targets, gun shops, pharmacies. Police pulled out. Then the National Guard came in. They weren't here to help. They locked down the main roads and took over the distribution centers. One day I tried to get some canned goods from the old Publix warehouse. Waited 6 hours in line. Got nothing but a pamphlet telling me to register at a supply center 10 miles away. That center was torched the next day. My neighbor Tony left the same night. Said he had family in Georgia. Invited me to come. I said no. I had nowhere else to go. The power cut out the next morning. I spent the next few days boiling rainwater and eating out of the pantry. Made the mistake of going to check on the old strip mall down the street. Caught a brick to the head by some kid high on adrenaline and desperation. Woke up behind a dumpster with a broken nose and a cracked rib. Someone dragged me there. Left a bottle of water beside me. Never knew who. When I limped home, my apartment had been ransacked. They didn't take much, just food and the old revolver I kept under the couch. I sat in the wreckage for hours thinking about my daughter, wondering if she was safe. Then came Leah. She was maybe 30, blonde, wiry, with a sharp look like she never fully relaxed. Found her trying to siphon gas from a disabled car outside the apartment complex. I had a shotgun by then, borrowed it from another neighbor who didn't make it through week 2. "I'm not looking for trouble," she said, hands up. "Just fuel. I'm headed north." I should have told her to leave, but I didn't. We shared a meal, 2 cans of chili and half a bottle of warm Gatorade. She told me her story. EMT. Had been running emergency routes until her ambulance got hijacked. Been walking ever since. Lost her brother to a riot in Tampa. I asked why she was heading north. Heard there's still order up there, she said. Heard wrong before, though. She stayed the night, then another. After that, we traveled together. Strength in numbers. We avoided highways, stuck to back roads and trails. Hit a few old hunting camps, found supplies. Some camps were empty, some weren't. Some had people we could talk to. Others, less so. One night we were camped near a canal using a little camp stove I salvaged. 2 guys came out of the brush, dirty, armed. Said they were looking for shelter. We let them sit by the fire. Leah never took her eyes off them. They talked big, claimed they were part of a group near Ocala building a new society. Said they had food, water, order. I didn't believe a word. That night, one of them tried to steal my shotgun while I slept. Leah caught him, pinned him with a knee on his neck and a knife at his ear. Told them both to leave. They did. But not before one of them whispered something on the way out. "You're dead already. You just don't know it yet." The next day we moved faster. Eventually we reached a farming community outside Lake City. Real organized. Perimeter guards, water tanks, chickens, goats, the whole deal. They let us in after a long talk and a gun check. We stayed 2 weeks, helped rebuild fences, dug trenches, cooked meals. Felt almost normal. I smiled for the first time in what felt like a year. Then they came. A convoy. 20 men. Armed. Said they were redistribution enforcement. Claimed to be under orders from the state government. Wore patched uniforms. Demanded half the food stores. The farmers said no. The next night was hell. Shots, fires, screaming. I dragged Leah into a drainage ditch behind the storage shed. We watched the smoke roll in. Watched people we'd come to know fight and die. At dawn, we crawled out. The farm was ashes. We didn't talk for a long time. Just walked. North again. I think about my daughter every day. Leah and I haven't said it out loud, but I think we're headed that way. To South Carolina. To something better. If there's a part of this country still standing, it's somewhere up there. We've made it this far. I've bled, I've killed, I've changed. But I'm not done yet. The road narrowed into pine country. Forest on both sides, thick and dark, with air that smelled clean and sharp like something untouched. We walked single file, Leah out front, quiet but alert. I watched our 6. By now we were 200 miles from the wreckage of Winter Haven. It felt like we'd traveled 1,000. We found a burned-out ranger station with a working well pump and spent the night. Just before dawn, Leah woke me up. "Someone's watching us," she whispered. I sat up fast, hand on my pistol. "Where?" She pointed to the trees across the clearing. I didn't see anyone, but I believed her. We moved before sunrise. Fast. Took a winding trail until we hit a fire access road and followed it for miles. No words, just movement. By late afternoon, we came across a small settlement. Half trailers, half tents, surrounded by logs and old fencing. A plywood sign read, "Clear eyes, clean hands, full rations." A man at the gate waved us down. Thin, sunburned, wearing a patched-up sheriff's vest. His rifle stayed low but ready. "We don't take looters," he said. "Not looters," Leah replied. "We can work." They let us in, barely, searched us, took our weapons temporarily, said they'd return them if we didn't cause trouble. The camp was stable. People worked in shifts, gardens, water treatment barrels, armed patrols. At night there was even music, someone with a guitar playing softly by firelight. We stayed a week, and that's when I saw the poster. Recruitment for State Loyalist Guard. Report to Greenville Outpost. Enlist for food and protection. Leah saw it too. Her jaw tightened. "Same bastards that burned Lake City," she said. I didn't answer. I was already scanning for exits. Because if those guys were that close and this camp was handing out their flyers, then this place wasn't safe either. We slipped out just before dawn. Didn't make a scene, didn't say goodbye. Left a note by the cot we'd been sleeping on, thanking the camp for the food and shelter. I knew it wouldn't mean much, once they found the recruitment poster missing too. I took it, stuffed it in my pack. Evidence. Reminder. We headed northeast, hugging backwoods trails and dry creek beds. The air had changed. Less smoke, more pine. The sound of insects and distant birds came back to life. Still, the tension in our shoulders never eased. We didn't trust the quiet anymore. On the third day, we ran into a blockade. A fallen tree across a gravel road. Looked natural until you noticed the tire tracks around it, and the empty beer can crushed under a boot print. Leah crouched and scanned the tree line. "We're being herded," she whispered. I nodded, tightened the strap on my pack, and drew my pistol. We flanked the road, moving into brush so thick it scraped our skin. Minutes later, we heard voices. "They'll come through, they always do." 2 men, armed, one in jeans and a tactical vest, the other in full camo. We waited, watched. I could see Leah calculating. We could go loud, or we could retreat and circle. She chose the latter. We hiked an extra 3 miles to avoid the trap. Our reward? A working truck? It was tucked into a collapsed shed beside an abandoned orchard. Tires were good. Battery was dead. Leah hot-wired it while I stood watch. The engine coughed to life and purred. "Hot damn," I muttered. "Don't celebrate yet," she said. "This thing smells like gasoline and secrets." Still, we took it, poured the last of our siphoned fuel into the tank. It was enough to get us closer to the border. The roads were worse now, trees down, bridges collapsed. Once we passed a billboard with holes blown clean through it. Someone had scrawled over it, "No gods, no orders." We stopped only to sleep, windows up, doors locked. Then came Greenville, or what was left of it. We parked on a hilltop and looked down. Concrete barriers, fences, searchlights, a compound carved out of the city center. Trucks with the Loyalist emblem rolled in and out in tight formation. "They've built a fortress," Leah said, almost in awe. "We knew we couldn't go around it. If we wanted to reach South Carolina, we had to go through."
I used to wake up with the sun. Now I haven't seen it in weeks, months. I don't even try to count the days anymore. I stopped keeping track after my phone died and wouldn't turn back on. Power's been out since the event, and even if I had a generator, it wouldn't matter. The whole grid's fucked. The sky is still pitch black. Not cloudy, not stormy, black. Like a goddamn void stitched itself over the atmosphere. It started with the light. Everyone talks about it differently. Some say it was a beam. Others say it was like the sky cracked open. Me, I saw it as a ripple. A wave of pale violet energy that rolled across the heavens like it was tearing through fabric. It shimmered with iridescence, brighter than anything I'd ever seen, but it didn't burn to look at. It was beautiful in the most terrifying way. That night, the stars disappeared. The moon never came out, and the sun never rose again. I'm writing this in a spiral notebook I found in a looted CBS. My name's Marcus, 23. I lived in Atlanta my whole life, born and raised near Cascade Road. Was going to Georgia State, majoring in environmental science. Now I eat cold beans out of dented cans and sleep with a blood-stained hatchet under my pillow. The city didn't fall apart immediately. It took 3 days, maybe 4. People clung to hope at first. It's just an eclipse, they said. It's temporary. But then the government went silent. No broadcasts, no emergency alerts. FEMA never showed up. The military didn't roll in. Just darkness. And that darkness, it did something to people. It started small. Dogs barked at nothing. Birds flew into windows. People got headaches, migraines, nosebleeds. Some would stand in the street staring at the sky with this blank look, like they were hearing something the rest of us couldn't. Then came the violence. At first it was just looting, people scrambling for food, water, candles. I remember one night I watched a man beat a teenager with a crowbar in front of a Family Dollar just to take his backpack. The teen didn't even scream. He just lay there twitching in a pool of blood, eyes wide, staring into nothing. The sound that crowbar made, it echoed through me. After that, things got worse. People stopped talking. Some of them wandered into the streets naked, whispering gibberish, smearing symbols on the asphalt with their own blood. I heard them one night, two men and a woman kneeling on a sidewalk by Ponce de Leon, humming this awful, droning melody. Over and over. It made my teeth hurt just listening to it. They weren't the only ones. I started noticing people were vanishing. Friends, neighbors. A woman I'd known my whole life who lived 2 doors down. I found her cat in the hallway, meowing at her locked apartment. When I broke in, her walls were covered in writing. Hundreds of lines carved into the drywall with a knife. Over and over. The sky is hollow. The sky is hollow. She was gone. A week in, I barricaded myself in my apartment. No more going out. Not unless I had to. I kept the windows covered. Even though it was pitch black outside, something about the sky made me feel watched. Like it was pressing against the glass. Food ran low. Water stopped running. I started boiling rainwater, but then the rain changed. It came down thick and sticky like molasses. Smelled like iron and rotted fruit. After I drank some, I didn't sleep for 4 days. My gums bled. My skin itched. I had dreams. No, visions. Horrible things. Black spires reaching from the earth. Eyes in the sky. Cities made of bone and sinew. I think I saw the future. Then came the screaming hour. I don't know how else to describe it. Every night, right at what should be midnight, this sound echoes through the city, like thousands of voices screaming all at once. Not from mouths, just the raw sound of agony vibrating through everything. Dogs howl, glass shatters, lights flicker, even though there's no power. Sometimes you can feel it in your bones. I remember the first time I heard it. I curled up under my bed, clutching my hatchet, biting down on a sock to keep from crying. I pissed myself. I'm not ashamed. Anyone would have. 3 nights ago, I ran into someone else still sane. At least, I think he was sane. Name was Devin, ex-National Guard. He had this wild look in his eyes, like he'd seen too much, but he still spoke in complete sentences, which is rare now. We hid in a church basement near Decatur, shared a can of peaches and stories. He told me his unit was stationed north of the city when the event happened. Said their radios went dead. Half his squad wandered off into the woods and never came back. The rest went mad. He said something else too. There's something coming through, he whispered, voice shaking. This darkness. It's not just blocking the sky. It's a veil, and something's on the other side, trying to get in. I asked him what he meant. He just stared at the wall. Devin's dead now. Found him 2 days later with his throat ripped out. No blood on the floor? None at all, just the wound and the look on his face. His eyes were open, mouth stretched in this unnatural grin, like he saw something glorious in the end. I think he wanted it. People talk about the call now. Some say it's a voice in their dreams. Others hear it while they're awake. I haven't heard it yet, but I can feel it getting closer, like pressure in my skull, a tightness behind the eyes. Sometimes I see shapes moving through the black when I look too long. Towering figures, tentacles, limbs that don't bend right. I blink and they're gone, but I know they were there. I don't think this is Earth anymore. Or maybe Earth stayed the same and we changed. There's a group that gathers near Centennial Olympic Park. They light trash fires and metal drums and chant until dawn. I watched them once from a rooftop. They carved something into their foreheads. Triangular symbols, inverted spirals. One of them looked right at me. Even from 5 stories up, I felt it. He smiled. Tomorrow I think I'm going to leave the city, head west, try to find some place the darkness hasn't consumed. I don't think it'll matter. Whatever happened to the sky, it's in us now, crawling under our skin, feeding off our thoughts. But I still have my mind. For now. And I'll keep writing. Even if I'm the last sane man left. I left Atlanta at night, which is the same as saying I left it during the day now. There is no difference anymore. The air is still, heavy, smells like damp concrete and copper. And worse, underneath it all, there's that rot. Not just from dead things, not anymore. The city itself is rotting, like the structures, the streets, even the wind is infected with something unseen. I strapped my backpack tight and slipped out the back of the church basement before the chanting crowd could gather again. Devin had left behind a half map of Georgia, hand-drawn on a grocery bag. He had circled Villarica, out west. He said something about a shelter, an anomaly. Less noise, he called it. Less noise sounded like salvation. The highways were empty, not with the clean emptiness of abandonment, but the twisted, violent aftermath of retreat. Piled cars, doors flung open, windshields shattered, burnt seats, half-eaten corpses slumped in some, jaws slack, eyes hollow. I stepped over them like trash, trying not to look too long. You can always tell the difference between someone who died screaming and someone who died smiling. I passed a family of 5 all sitting in their van, still buckled in, heads tilted back, black streaks poured from their eyes, something written on the windshield in lipstick. The light burns long after it's gone. What the hell does that even mean? I kept moving. By the time I reached the outskirts, I was starving. I stopped at a gas station in Douglasville. The windows were already smashed. I picked through whatever was left, jerky, crackers, a warm bottle of orange soda. That's when I heard the scratching. At first, I thought it was a raccoon. I peeked around the back and found a man crouched in the corner behind the ice machine. Naked, covered in filth, his hands were raw from clawing at the cinder block wall, fingernails long gone. He was scratching something into the brick. Symbols, so many of them, layered on top of each other, in blood and something else I didn't want to identify. He didn't look at me. He didn't even seem to know I was there. He just whispered, "It's in the marrow now." I left, quickly. The night got colder as I moved west. The stars never returned. The sky above me was a dead matte black, like someone turned off the universe. It was near Sweetwater Creek when I first saw the things. Not just shadows, beings. I was cutting through a tree line to avoid a wrecked police blockade when I saw movement on the ridge. Long arms, bent legs, no faces, just pale skin that pulsed like it was breathing. They didn't walk so much as glide, limbs swaying like kelp in water. I dropped flat into the brush and didn't move for hours. They don't make sound, not unless they're close. Then they hum, low, vibrational. You feel it in your spine, like something singing from inside your bones. Villarica wasn't salvation. It was worse. I made it there by the 5th day. I hadn't slept. My nails were cracked, my lips bleeding from chewing them down. And when I crested that hill and saw the flickering of distant light, I felt a flicker of something I hadn't felt in weeks. Hope. But as I got closer, I realized something was wrong. The shelter was a strip mall, all boarded up except one entrance, and that was guarded by 3 people in rags with hunting rifles. Their eyes glowed faintly, not like flashlight reflection, like bioluminescence, a soft purple sheen. They weren't human anymore. I tried to back away. Too late. They brought me inside, not to feed me, not to help, to show me. The place was packed with people, but they didn't speak. They just sat shoulder to shoulder, in absolute silence, staring at a television screen that displayed nothing but static. White noise buzzed like flies. Dozens of them, watching static like it was God himself. A woman, face painted with thick, tar-like makeup, eyes vacant, whispered to me, "We see clearly now. In the white we remember the shape of it, the true sky." Then she smiled and her teeth were gone. All of them. Her gums were black. I ran. I don't know how. Don't know why they didn't stop me. I sprinted through a fire exit, cut my arm on broken glass, and didn't look back until I hit the tree line. That night I stayed in a culvert under an old rail bridge, arm wrapped in an old shirt, teeth chattering. I wanted to scream, to cry, to rip my own skin off just to feel something that made sense again. But instead I wrote, I've filled 12 pages now. If someone finds this, maybe it'll help them. Maybe not. I've stopped dreaming. Instead I see, even when I'm awake, flashes, the great spire, a world of flesh and shadow, a moon made of eyes, a sea that bleeds upward. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's what's coming. Maybe it's where we're going. Maybe we're already there. My thoughts are not my own anymore. I know this. Something watches from behind the veil. It's not God. It's not the devil. It's something else, something older. And it's hungry. Tomorrow I head further west. If there's anyone left reading this, know that you are not crazy. You are not alone. But you are being hunted by the dark, by those who've welcomed it. Stay away from the light. It's not light anymore. It's the eye.
I'm not sure what day it is anymore. The calendar on the fridge still says April, but that doesn't mean shit. The power's been out for 11 days and the sun hasn't come out in 6. My phone's dead. My watch stopped ticking 3 nights ago. All I've got now is the sound of wind outside and whatever's crawling around inside my walls. Name's Cole. 34. Used to be a welder over in Oak Ridge. I live alone just outside Maryville. Back road town, old farmhouse I inherited from my grandfather. Used to think of it as peaceful. Now it feels like a grave someone forgot to bury. It started with the news. Unidentified hemorrhagic virus in New York. That's what they called it at first. Bleeding eyes, black vomit, madness. At first I thought it was bullshit, the kind of overblown panic they slap across the screen to keep ratings up. I'd seen the same fear-mongering during the last pandemic and half a dozen scares before that, but this one was different. It wasn't just deadly. It changed people. The ones who didn't die got twisted. Their minds went. Completely. It wasn't rage, exactly. Not like rabies. It was obsession. They'd get locked into one idea, one image, and repeat it over and over until their bodies gave out. A woman in Knoxville was found clawing her skin off, whispering, "Clean, clean, clean," for 12 straight hours. A preacher gouged out his own eyes and told police he had to see God more clearly. I saw that one myself. I'll never forget the way he laughed through his own blood. When it hit Tennessee, it hit hard. They locked down Memphis first, then Chattanooga, then Nashville. Too late, of course. People were already fleeing into the hills, into places like mine. I didn't let anyone in, not even my brother. He showed up the second week after the reports started getting really bad. Bloody shirt, twitching eyes, holding a baseball bat and sobbing like a kid. "I didn't mean to hurt her," he said. "It was an accident." I kept the door shut. He screamed at me, begged, slammed the bat into the porch rail until it snapped in half. Then he left, dragging the bat handle behind him like a broken limb. I haven't seen him since. I started hearing screams in the woods that night. Low at first, distant, then closer. You can tell when someone's infected before the sores even show. Their eyes stop blinking. They just stare at you, through you, like they're already somewhere else. Then comes the shaking, the muttering, always quiet at first, like they're praying or reciting a recipe under their breath. Then comes the screaming. I made it 3 weeks without incident. Fortified the doors, nailed boards over the windows, moved the mattress down into the basement, and set up a cot near the old coal furnace. I had a generator, a rain barrel, a hunting rifle, and 6 months of canned food. I thought I'd be fine. Then they found me. I don't know how. Maybe the smoke from the fire I used to boil water. Maybe the noise when I cracked open the propane tank that one night too loud. But they came. 4 of them. Faces half eaten by rot and scratching at their own throats, like something inside was trying to climb out. One woman kept repeating the same word, "Nest, nest." Nest over and over. She was chewing her fingertips down to the bone. They didn't try to break the door down. They sat there, cross-legged, waiting, watching. I didn't sleep, not for 3 days. I kept the rifle pointed at the window, but they never moved. Just sat there in the mud and rain, whispering about nests and purity and hollow bones. Then, the third night, one of them crawled inside the walls. I still don't know how. I woke up to the sound of fingernails scraping down the support beams. I heard her breathing inside the goddamn walls. A long, rattling wheeze that followed me no matter where I moved. I punched holes in the drywall, tore up the insulation. Nothing. She only stopped when I started laughing. I think I lost something in that moment. Something important. The virus spreads through touch, through spit, through breath, maybe even through thought. That's what I started to believe after the radio died. Because I kept hearing them even when they weren't there. Voices in the vents. Whispers behind doors I hadn't opened in weeks. Laughter echoing from the basement when I wasn't inside it. One night, I woke up with bloody fingernails and a dead squirrel in my hands. I don't remember killing it, but I remember what it felt like. Warm, fragile, perfect. They say the infection makes you see things, that it wants you to hallucinate, because once your brain stops being able to tell real from unreal, it's easier to break. I believe it. Last night, I saw my mother. She's been dead for 6 years. She came to me in the dark, holding a lantern and humming the old song she used to sing when I had nightmares. "Come to the window, my baby." Her dress was soaked in black. Her teeth were gone, but her hands were soft. Familiar. She touched my cheek and whispered, "Let it in." I screamed until my throat bled. When I woke up, the door to the basement was open, and I had carved the word nest into my own chest. I don't know how much longer I'll last. I've boarded everything up again. Stopped lighting fires, stopped eating, stopped sleeping. The woman in the walls stopped whispering. But now, something knocks under the floor every few hours. I don't think it's her anymore. I think it's me. Something growing inside, changing, becoming. I don't feel pain. Not anymore. Just pressure. Hunger. A buzzing in my teeth like they want to fall out. I found a mirror. Looked into my own eyes. They didn't blink. It's cold now. I don't remember when it got cold. Might have been days ago. Might have been hours. I think the air inside the house stopped moving. It sits heavy on my skin, wet and sour, like breath from an open grave. I stopped using my name. Doesn't feel like it fits anymore. Cole was someone else. Someone with a job, a brother, a future. What I am now, I don't think it has a name. Just urges, impulses. The hunger's gotten worse. Not for food, not real food anyway. I haven't touched the canned stuff in over a week. Tastes like tin and sickness. I opened one yesterday just to look at it, and the smell made me throw up. What I crave now is meat. Raw, still warm. Last night I found a possum half dead behind the furnace. I didn't hesitate. Its spine cracked easy. The blood was thick and bitter. It twitched the whole time I ate it. I didn't feel disgust, just relief. Like I'd been waiting for it. Like it had been waiting for me. Afterward, I sat in the dark and licked my fingers clean. That was when the wall started bleeding. It began as a drip, like a pipe leak. Then, a long, wet line traced down the drywall, thick and pulsing like a vein. I touched it, warm, sweet-smelling. I pressed my ear to the spot and heard something breathing on the other side. Not fast, not human. Deep and steady, like the lungs of an animal asleep under the floorboards of the world. I laughed. I couldn't stop. My voice didn't sound like mine anymore. It came out in hiccups and snarls, like I was choking on something alive in my throat. The sound pleased me. I think the thing in the wall liked it too. It hasn't stopped watching me since. I don't sleep anymore. The dreams are worse than the hunger. I see rows of teeth growing in the soil, spines bending backward into crosses. My mother's voice telling me to drink the rain and let the bones teach me how to speak. The walls pulse now. They breathe. And I breathe with them. I found a nest behind the water heater. Not an animal's, a human's, or something close to one. Shredded blankets, rotting clothes, and finger bones, arranged in a spiral like a fossilized flower. I sat in it for hours. I think I belong there. Sometimes I catch myself saying things I don't understand. Root to rot, tongue to tongue, burn the eyes, save the song. Where did that come from? Why do I know it? My body's changing. Skin flaking in gray sheets. My teeth ache. My joints feel wrong, loose, fluid. Like I'm melting from the inside out and rebuilding into something better, something sharper. Yesterday I woke up with dirt in my mouth. I'd eaten a hole through the cellar floor. There were worms inside. I chewed them. They tasted like memory. The house is full now, not of people, of shapes. They move when I blink. I see their shadows stretched across the hallway like strands of wet hair. One of them crawls upside down along the ceiling. Another one wears my brother's face, but keeps it inside out. I let them stay. I think they've always been here. The virus didn't bring them. It just let me see. The woman in the wall sings to me now. She sings in a language that bubbles like boiling milk, soft and scalding at the same time. I hum along. I know the tune. I wrote it. I think I remember being born. I think I remember again. I needed to become empty to be full. That's what she told me. That's what the sores are for. They opened last night, all across my chest, like mouths, like eyes. They sing now when I breathe. Low vibrations, messages in my bones, instructions. I am the vessel, the hollow man. The plague isn't punishment, it's preparation. We were never meant to last as we were. We were clay, mud, blind meat. This virus, it's not a sickness. It's the fire in the kiln. It's making me real. I'm going to go outside soon, walk into town, let them see what I've become, let them drink the sound of my voice and dream of what's waiting underneath the roots. She's waiting, in the black tree, in the nest beneath the skin of the world, and I will bring her home.
The first time I saw them, I thought I was looking at a broken cloud. It was a Tuesday. I was up on a rooftop near Liberty Park, working on a restaurant unit that kept blowing out heat instead of AC. Mid-July, no wind, hot as hell. I remember squinting up at the sky while I smoked a cigarette. And there it was. This long horizontal smear. A dark bruise across the blue. Like someone dragged a charcoal finger across the atmosphere. It didn't move like clouds move. It just stayed. Hung there like it was waiting for something. I finished my cigarette and told myself to stop watching the sky. I should have listened to my gut. By Thursday, the smear had multiplied. Not clouds. Not smoke. Something else. The news didn't say much. Some fringe podcasts started talking about high-altitude atmospheric anomalies and structured patterns in upper atmospheric compression fields. Code for, we don't know what the fuck this is. Then, on Saturday, people started disappearing. It wasn't gradual. It was like someone flipped a switch. 1 second the city was normal. Buses running, people biking, families barbecuing. The next, there were gaps. Literal holes in the population. Cars crashed into poles with no drivers. Phones left on benches still playing music. Purses without their owners. Parents screaming for kids that had been right next to them seconds before. Panic didn't start that day. It started when the screaming did. I was downtown when it happened. It wasn't a noise so much as a pressure. This deep, stomach-churning vibration that came from everywhere and nowhere. People dropped to their knees, holding their heads, sobbing, bleeding from their noses. Some stood up and walked straight into traffic. Others started stripping naked, muttering gibberish about how they were under the skin, and the air had teeth now. I ran. I don't remember much of those first hours. Just that I ran until my legs couldn't go anymore and hid in a locked dumpster behind a sandwich shop. I pissed myself. Didn't care. I sat there in the dark and listened. There were no sirens, no helicopters, just this sound. A low thrum that made my bones hurt. When I climbed out, the sky had changed. They didn't arrive in ships. No big landers, no spotlights. They just appeared. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds, drifting down from the smeared sky like pieces of string being dropped from space. Each one looked different. No uniform, no symmetry, just awful geometry. Shapes that didn't make sense unless you tilted your head, like looking at broken architecture held together by breath. They had no eyes, no faces. They didn't speak. They just killed. The first one I saw up close was floating above a Walmart parking lot. Its body hung like kelp in water, all tentacle and bone, surrounded by what looked like strands of mist. But when the mist touched a human, it tore them apart. Not exploded, not burned, just undone. A man in front of me tried to shoot it. 9mm Glock. Did nothing. The thing didn't even flinch. Just reached out, and the guy crumpled inward like a beer can in slow motion. No blood. Just this awful wet sound. And then he was flat. I stopped moving after that. Just dropped to the pavement and played dead. It worked. For that day. They didn't come to enslave us. That was obvious. They weren't interested in communication or negotiation. They weren't trying to terrify us. They just did. Like bulldozers aren't trying to terrify anthills. I overheard a guy on a ham radio say something that stuck with me. They're not invading. They're clearing out space. Earth wasn't the prize. We were the problem. The weeks after that were nothing but survival. I lived in the basement of a burned-out vet clinic on the south end of the city. Ate canned peaches, dry pasta, anything I could scavenge. I drank rainwater until it turned thick and gray, then switched to bottled stuff from gas stations. Nights were worst. I'd lie on the tile floor, holding a tire iron, listening to the things outside. They didn't walk. They scraped, like their limbs were dragging across concrete, always just a few inches too long. Sometimes they'd stop right outside my building. Wait. Breathing in this slow, gurgled rhythm, like someone drowning on the other side of a wall. I started to think they could smell thought. Like the more afraid you were, the more interested they got. I chewed sleeping pills just to keep my mind blank. After 2 months, the air started to burn. Not like fire, like metal. Breathing felt like dragging razors down your throat. I found out later they were changing the atmosphere. Their biology didn't like nitrogen levels. So they were converting it, scrubbing the sky clean of what we needed. Slowly turning Earth into a planet where we couldn't breathe. I met other survivors. 4 of them. We lived under an abandoned LDS chapel in the avenues. Mostly silence. Everyone was too scared to speak unless they had to. One guy, Mike, used to be a corrections officer. Big dude. Didn't say much. One night he left to look for batteries and never came back. We found his boots in the middle of the road the next day. Just his boots. One by one, we all got picked off. Hannah slit her wrists in the chapel bathroom. No note. Just couldn't take it anymore. Jonas wandered off in the middle of the night. I think he heard something. Said it was his wife's voice calling from outside. His wife had been dead for weeks. Only I remained. And I was running out of food, air, and reasons to stay alive. It's day 107, I think. I'm writing this in charcoal on the back of a discarded Bible. The pages are already full. I don't know why I'm writing anymore. No one's coming. No one's fixing this. The governments are gone. Satellites are offline. The air burns. Water is poison. And the sky still has teeth. They've started building something in the distance. I can see the glow on the horizon, like a city being raised out of bone and metal and things I can't name. It moves when I don't look directly at it. The ground hums when I get too close. I think it's alive. And I think they're going to seed it. Hatch something. I think we were just the first obstacle. I don't expect to survive the week. But if someone finds this, know that they didn't care about us. Not the way we think aliens would. They didn't land. They didn't negotiate. They didn't explain. They reclaimed. We were the infestation. Earth was never ours.
I was sitting by the window of my apartment in Capitol Hill, Denver. 27 floors up, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. My view from my window is peaceful. A small courtyard somewhere up the ways. Plenty of buildings that place together neatly, and a partial view of the mountains as my apartment basically faces southwest. I wasn't watching anything important on my phone, TV playing Spotify. Just scrolling. Dead-eyed. Another meme, another crisis headline, another war report from the Middle East or Asia or wherever this week's dose of global drama needs to originate from. A meme about the president, a short with 2 different videos at once to feed the insatiable appetite of our modern attention spans. I put my phone down. As I'm looking out the window from the living room in my apartment, about 25 feet away from me, a sliding glass door, I realize something peculiar. Why haven't I gotten mail today? It seems like a funny thing to realize. But every single Saturday, 9 a.m., mail would always arrive through the envelope crack in the door. An older apartment, I know, but nonetheless, even if I was merely going to throw it away, why isn't it here? Well, help! I openly exclaimed to myself as I slapped my hands onto my lap. I go to sit up and start my day, but then it hit me, a feeling in my stomach akin to what you feel when you're on a roller coaster about to drop. I look towards the window. Something is not okay. Now I'm certain. I frantically force myself upwards toward my room, looking directly at my room as if something had possessed me as it happened. I can't explain it right. You think it would be a boom, but it was more like a deep, threatening roar, like the earth was screaming. The window flexed as the air pressure hit me like a punch in the chest. I was consumed by light in that moment. Dogs barking, howling, screaming even. But then silence. My ears rang so loud I couldn't tell if it was me screaming or my ears bleeding. Luckily, as this was happening, I basically fell into a posture on my floor that resembles the fetus position, angled away from the window. I am pretty sure this is what saved me from being blinded or truly deaf. Even though I lost a significant portion of my hearing that day, at least I can still hear. I feel blood rush down my face from the side of my head. A piece of glass cut me. I place my hand on the side of my head. As I try to get up, I crumble underneath my own weight, arms giving out as if they were flimsily like noodles. Everything is spinning. Everything is fading. I'm trying so hard to fight it with everything in me, but I can't. My head slams into the floor as I pass out. Now. Right now. Awake. I arose quickly this time, pushing myself up rather quickly. Left side of my temple still gashed, my face halfway covered in blood. Hand on my head, I stumble over my TV that was now laying out across the ground, in front of where it played my music a few minutes ago. I somehow start to hear the sounds of screaming over the ring in my ears. Louder. As I make my way to what was once my peaceful apartment view. I am greeted to hell on earth. Nothing less. Dust that was picked up by whatever just happened hanged over the streets like a dense fog. People walking around aimlessly, confused. A lot more people just laid out across the sidewalks, unconscious. Some people hunched over, cradling themselves, rocking back and forth while a few people run through the courtyard, wailing and frantically screaming. What the hell just happened? My eyes squint into the dense dust and crap that is filling the air to see what I believe is some people amongst the fog. My eyes painfully looking onward. They seemed more alive. They started running, shouting, and pointing. Some have their phones pointed. Oh, I didn't move, frozen in fear. I couldn't understand what I was looking at. It was a mushroom cloud, grinding away at a majority of the sky as if it were a hand from Satan himself, trying to tear its way towards the heavens. It was wrong, unnatural. Telling by the direction of the blast, Colorado Springs, meaning NORAD and Mount Cheyenne, were gone, vaporized. All that concrete, steel, and secrecy just erased. The military hadn't stopped it. Or maybe they never saw it coming. My phone buzzed in my hand, screen partially cracked but certainly readable. Still connected to a barely functioning 5G network. Emergency alert. Shelter in place, radiation hazard. Seek immediate cover, avoid all travel. There was a link to fallout maps, a projected wind path, and a timer. Estimated fallout arrival, 37 minutes. 37 minutes. Okay, it's time to think quick. I need to lock in. I have no basement, no lead-lined bunker, just concrete and drywall, and a lot of desperate people. My hands trembled. I pulled my go bag from the closet, more a hobbyist survival bag than a serious bug-out bag. I grab a few MREs, flashlight, multi-tool, 2 water bottles, a radio and a pistol I haven't shot in 3 years, a pack of cigarettes as well that have been sitting in the pantry for quite some time. I ran. The stairwell was chaos. People shouting, crying, a man in scrubs arguing with someone about iodine tablets. Someone was puking halfway down. I didn't stop. I didn't look at anyone. I just moved. Outside, Denver was holding its breath. People crowded in clusters, staring south like spectators to the end of the world. The wind began to shift. I saw it, a dark haze rolling over the Rockies like a malevolent tide. Fallout. I needed to get underground. The only place I could think of was the abandoned light rail tunnels near Union Station. I'd heard rumors about them. Urban explorers, old maintenance workers, people who knew the guts of the city. I had nothing else. The streets were breaking down already. People started looting. The first store windows shattered as I passed the 16th Street Mall. Not just thieves. People were desperate, grabbing bottled water, canned goods, medicine. A woman ran by with a plastic bag full of baby formula. Her hands were shaking so hard, she dropped one of the cans and didn't stop to pick it up. Sirens screamed somewhere behind me. When suddenly a cop car sped by and sideswiped a fire hydrant, spraying water into the air like a geyser. The officer didn't even stop. Everyone knew what was coming. I ducked into an alley and forced open a rusted maintenance door behind an old warehouse. I knew from an old Reddit thread that it connected to a decommissioned section of the underground rail system. I just hoped it wasn't flooded or sealed off. The darkness swallowed me whole as I rushed myself through the rusted door. Luckily, no signs of flooding. I clicked on my flashlight, the beam trembling with each heartbeat. The air was thick with dust and rot. Rats scurried away from my boots. I followed the tunnel downward, deeper, until the sound of the city faded. My breath sounded like a stranger's in that place. I stayed underground for what felt like hours. The radio crackled in my pack. Shortwave signals, garbled voices, panic from all over. Nuclear strike confirmed. Multiple cities targeted. Secondary attacks possible. Then static, then silence. I rationed my water. I didn't eat. I couldn't. I emerged that night. The city above me had changed. Ash floated down like snow. The streetlights flickered and died. The buildings looked grayer, like the color had been burned out of them. People moved like ghosts, slow, jittery, paranoid. Some carried weapons. Others wandered aimlessly, eyes vacant. I avoided them all. Radiation levels in Denver weren't lethal, yet. The prevailing winds had spared most of the metro. But that wouldn't last. There was talk of more bombs. Washington gone. Dallas gone. San Francisco gone. Someone said Chicago was burning, but who knew anymore? There was no government now, no rescue, no FEMA trucks rolling in. And people, they changed. Fast. The guy at the gas station on Colfax shot a man in the stomach for trying to grab a gallon of milk. A woman lit her own car on fire and stood beside it laughing, the flames reflecting in her eyes. I saw a group of teenagers walking with baseball bats and a shopping cart filled with severed mannequin heads and canned beans. I didn't talk to anyone unless I had to. Trust had evaporated like moisture on a hot skillet. One night, maybe 3 days after the blast, I saw the first execution. It happened in Civic Center Park. A man tied to a flagpole, blood running into the grass. I didn't know why. No one explained. No one had to. It was all symbols now. Messages painted in gore. The scariest part wasn't the death. It was the normalization of it. Like the rules we lived by, laws, empathy, decency, had all been erased in a single flash of light. And now people were rewriting them in real time, each one more twisted than the last. I kept my head down and moved at night. My apartment has to be gone by now, looted to the bones. So I stayed in alleys, rooftops, maintenance shafts. I slept with my pistol in hand. I ate cold MREs under broken billboards that used to advertise political campaigns and now just hung like grave markers. I started writing this in a notebook I found in a smashed school bus. I don't know why. Maybe to remember what the world was before. Maybe to hold on to some sliver of humanity. But I feel it's slipping. I used to flinch at every scream, every gunshot. Now I barely blink. The world ended quietly. Not in a massive bang, though there was that, but in the slow unraveling that came after. In the hunger and the madness, and the way people smiled with dead eyes when starvation gives them more reason than doubt. And it's only the beginning. The smell of smoke was still everywhere. It clung to my clothes, my skin, even the inside of my mouth. Days after the blast, the city was a patchwork of ruin and silence. Entire blocks flickered with weak flames, unattended. Car alarms still went off randomly, echoing through the empty streets like ghosts trying to scream. I'd gone mostly nocturnal by then. The radiation levels were lower after dark, barely, and the worst of the scavengers tended to move in groups during the day. I was alone, always alone, until I wasn't. I was picking through a corner store off Spear Boulevard, the kind of place that sold overpriced snacks, expired canned soup, and weird energy drinks you only bought on dares. The front windows had already been smashed out. I kept my pistol low but ready, eyes darting for movement. That's when I heard it, soft humming. I froze behind a toppled aisle shelf. The voice was faint but clear, carrying a tune I almost recognized. Something old, maybe a lullaby? I crept forward, slow, careful not to crunch broken glass. I leaned around the end cap of batteries and condoms, and that's when I saw her. She looked like she didn't belong in this nightmare. Maybe early 20s, tan jacket, duct-taped hiking boots, messy dark hair pulled into a loose braid. She sat cross-legged on the floor near the back of the store, lighting a half-burned candle with a match. Like it was a normal Tuesday. Like she hadn't seen the world peel open and scream. I lowered my gun just a little. "Hey," I said, voice rough from days of silence. "Don't move." She didn't scream. She didn't reach for a weapon. She just looked up at me, eyes calm, big and brown, like she'd already made peace with something I hadn't yet. "Relax," she said, her voice soft but steady. "If I wanted to kill you, I wouldn't be singing lullabies." "People are doing worse for less," I said. "You alone?" She nodded once. Same as you, I guess. I stepped closer, still cautious. Got a name? Jenna. I'm Zach. She smiled, just barely. You don't look like a Zach. You look like a guy who hasn't slept in 5 days. That's accurate, I said. I sat down across from her, keeping a safe distance. The candle flickered between us like a tiny campfire. She handed me a granola bar. I took it even though I wasn't sure I could keep it down. Where were you when it happened? She asked. I glanced at the ceiling. Cap Hill. My window faced south. I saw the whole thing. Damn, she whispered. I was in a freight elevator when it hit. Thought we were getting hit by an earthquake or something. When I came back up, everything was just gone, I finished. She nodded. The flame cast long shadows on her face. You have family? No, I said too fast. Then, softer. Not here. My brother's in Michigan, maybe. If the grid was up, I'd... She cut me off gently. It's not, and it won't be again. Not anytime soon. We sat in silence for a while. The building creaked in the wind. Somewhere in the distance, a gunshot rang out. Neither of us flinched. She spoke first. You're not like the others, she said. What makes you say that? You didn't shoot me. You didn't scream. You didn't even ask what I had in my bag. Maybe I'm just tired, I muttered. Maybe you're still human. That hit me harder than I expected. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled out my map. One of those tourist things you grab at the airport, now more valuable than gold. I flattened it on the floor. I'm thinking of heading west, I said. High ground. Less fallout risk. Maybe find a clean water source. She leaned over the map, her braid brushing the paper. Golden. Boulder. That's a hard climb. Yeah, but fewer people. Fewer people means fewer problems, she said, then paused. And fewer supplies. I'll take my chances. What about you? I was headed for the base in Buckley, but I think that's toast. I saw military vehicles headed out that way. Then none came back. We looked at each other. No plan, no orders. Just two strangers in a broken city. You could come with me, I said before I really thought about it. Jenna tilted her head. Why? Because talking to someone helps, I said. Even if it's just to remind yourself you're not going crazy. She stared at me a long time, then nodded. All right, Zach. Let's see how far we can get before the world swallows us, too. We left before sunrise. The air was sharp and metallic, and every shadow looked like it might have teeth. I led, she followed, and we kept close. I noticed she always walked slightly behind and to the left, like muscle memory. Military, maybe, or just careful. We avoided major roads, weaving through alleyways and overgrown parks. At this point, Denver wasn't dead, but it was close. We passed bodies on the sidewalks, some old, some fresh, some missing shoes or bags or faces. No one buried anyone anymore. There wasn't time. There wasn't mercy. We stopped at a pharmacy. A pickup truck was rammed through the front sliding glass doors, its hazards slowly blinking with what little energy they had left. We found gauze, alcohol wipes, and a bottle of penicillin someone had missed. Score, Jenna said, tossing it into her pack. People are going to kill for that soon, I said. They already are. We camped that night in the remains of a library. The shelves were toppled, the floor littered with paperbacks and broken glass. We made a fire in a metal trash can. I wrapped my coat around me and stared into the flames. Do you think it was just NORAD? I asked. No, she said. That was just the start. Whoever launched it, they didn't stop. Or they weren't the only ones. So, no rescue? Jenna shook her head. No cavalry. No helicopters. No safe zones. What's left then? She looked at me across the fire. I don't know. Survive. Maybe remember how. We didn't say anything after that. The silence was more honest. Later, I lay awake while Jenna slept beside the fire, her hand resting on the grip of a small revolver. I watched the shadows shift on the ceiling and tried to convince myself this wasn't permanent. That tomorrow, the world would start to make sense again. But I already knew better. The blast didn't end the world. It just peeled off its skin, blew away the mask that we called everyday life.